She screamed from corner to corner of the building that my husband was her lover. She spread the lie with such truth that almost everyone believed it. Almost. Until someone turned on the record. And what she said in that audio destroyed the farce. She moved in less than a year ago. Apartment 415. Alone, discreet at first, but always very attentive to the building's activity. It started with solicited smiles in the elevator, questions about who lived where, and comments disguised as curiosity. Over time, the mask slipped, and with it, a sequence of behaviors began that no one expected. At first, it was just random comments. She said my husband was too polite to be so nice. She told some neighbors that he always looked at her differently. Until then, we thought it was just her imagination, or vanity. But she went further. One day, a resident of the floor below called me into the garage. She was visibly embarrassed. "Look, I don't know if it's any of my business, but the girl at 415 is saying she's having an affair with your husband." I froze. The first question that came to mind was, "What do you mean?" She pierced me. She said it in no uncertain terms. That you two pretend to have a perfect marriage, but that, in reality, he's her lover. She said they meet in secret and that you know it, but pretend not to know. It felt like a punch in the gut. I returned to the apartment in shock. My husband was on the couch, watching TV, as if nothing was happening. When I told him, he froze. He immediately denied it, firmly. He said he barely knew who she was, that he'd never even had a full conversation with the woman, that it was all fabrication, and that if it were true, he'd have proof. And he was right. She had none. Just words. And poison. But words, when spoken truthfully, have the power to destroy. In the following days, the looks I got. The silence in the elevator became uncomfortable. Some of the mothers in the condominium who always called me to chat started avoiding me. I saw whispers at the pool, I saw fake smiles, I saw doors closed when I was sitting. And her. She started walking with an air of superiority, as if she were winning a war that never existed. She greeted my husband as if he were close. Once, I saw it with my own eyes. He got into the elevator, and before I got in, she said with a smile, "Hey, you've been missing." It was enough to make me tremble all over. And for him, a visible environment. When we got out, he said, "Did you see that? She's creating a story in her head." But the story had already been planted. And it was growing fast. Some people nearby began to look at me with pity. Others, with judgment. I heard things like, "She's pretty, isn't she?" These things happen. Some women close their eyes to avoid facing reality. Poor thing, she's being cheated on and doesn't even realize it. And the worst part? All of this without any proof. No message, no caught meeting, no video. Just a single word from a woman determined to destroy what wasn't hers. I began to question myself. Could someone so convinced be telling the truth? Was my husband hiding something from me? But when I looked into his eyes, I saw anger, indignation. Don't be afraid. And the question that haunted me most, why was she doing this? Until I found out. She had already done something similar in another condominium. That's what a former resident had told me after the story began to spread. It was a pattern. She singled out the couples, identified the man as her lover, and assumed the pose of a hidden prisoner, causing chaos, distrust, and emotional destruction. But no one listened to me. No one cared about my pain. Until the day someone recorded it. And that's when the mask fell. Not in front of me, but in front of the whole neighborhood. After the neighbor from 415 started spreading the word that my husband was her lover, the lie became a shadow hanging over us. With every step I took through the building's hallways, I felt eyes following me. And they weren't neutral gazes. They were filled with doubt, pity, judgment, and worst of all, confirmation. As if everyone had accepted her version as the absolute truth, even though they'd never seen a thing. What hurt wasn't just the gossip. It was the way people who once smiled sincerely now changed sides. That neighbor from 201, who always offered me cake and asked about my daughter, started looking away. The woman from 408, with whom I took morning walks, stopped responding to my messages. The building manager, who had always been cordial, now barely spoke to me. It was as if I'd been condemned for something I didn't commit. Worse, as if I were an accomplice to a betrayal that never existed. The condominium meetings, once full of trivialities, began to suffocate me. I'd enter the room and the whispers would stop. People pretended to pay attention to the agenda, but their looks said it all. I was the alleged lover's wife. And him? He was the man who shamelessly cheated and thought no one would see. I began to avoid common areas. We stopped going to the pool together, attending the building's parties. My husband, who had always been sociable, became silent. He preferred to walk up and down the stairs to avoid running into people. The situation was so heavy that we began to consider moving. But something inside me told me, we can't run away from the lie. We have to face it. Even so, the weight was too great. I didn't know who to trust anymore. The few friends I had left said, "Don't worry, the truth will come out." But every time I opened the condominium's WhatsApp group and saw cryptic messages, mean jokes, or eyes emojis, the fear returned. Because even without a name, I knew they were indirect messages aimed at me. The climax was when I accidentally overheard a conversation between two residents in the garage. I think she knows and accepts it. Some women prefer to live like this, pretending everything is fine. Or maybe she's afraid of losing. And then she pretends not to see. These sentences tore me apart. I cried hidden in the bathroom. I began to doubt myself. Have people always been like this and I never realized it? Could the truth no longer matter, only the most dramatic version? My marriage, which until then had been my refuge, also began to falter. Not because of his fault, but because of the strain. We fought over small things. Any silence seemed to hide something. Any delay turned into distrust. And I hated becoming that woman, suspicious, hurt, tired. But deep down, I knew I wasn't the one in the wrong. I wasn't the one making up stories. It wasn't my husband hiding something. We were being targeted by an envious, obsessive woman who used lies as a weapon. And the cruelest part, she did it with a smile on her face. She would pass me in the hallways and say, "Good morning," as if she weren't slowly destroying my peace. Until fate, or perhaps justice, decided to intervene. A resident, outraged by what was happening, decided to record it. Not for my sake, but because he himself had been the victim of rumors she had created some time ago. In a casual conversation, he provoked her, saying, "You're still with that married guy from 402, aren't you?" And that's when she fell into her own trap. Oh, please. That was just to stir things up around here. These women really need a scare. Who's to blame for thinking so highly of themselves? She laughed, as if it were all a game. As if destroying a relationship was just fun. Little did she know that her phone was recording everything. That audio went down like a bombshell in the buildings group. And suddenly, the looks that had previously been judging me turned on her. What happened next changed everything. The leaked audio dropped like a grenade on the buildings group. No one expected it. It was sent by a number few people knew, one of the more reserved residents on the second floor, named Raphael, who never got involved in the condo's troubles. But that Friday afternoon, at 4:17 p.m., his message appeared there, among the market advertisements and complaints about the elevator. Envelope with arrow, if you still think you know everything, listen to this before you keep judging. And below, a 1-minute and 23-second audio clip. It took me a few seconds to work up the courage to press play. I was tired of hearing distorted versions, gossip, comments disguised as concern. But when the sound started coming through my phone, my whole body froze. It was her voice. Clara, mocking, laughing as if she were telling a joke. "Oh, for God's sake, do you still believe that story? I only said that to watch the circus burn. These perfect little wives need to learn that no man is theirs alone. And if he's not mine, at least he's afraid of being one." Silence. Then more laughter. "He never paid me any attention. He's all proper, you know." But her face, when she started to fall. That was worth it. Pain and relief came together. Because in that moment, there was the naked, raw, disgusting, and yet liberating truth. She didn't just make it all up. She did it on purpose. Out of spite, out of vanity, out of pleasure in seeing someone plummet from a place she could never reach. The group exploded. The messages began to arrive one after the other. First, indignant. Unbelievable. She did that just to destroy her neighbor's family. There's no way to let this go. I always suspected her behavior. Now I'm certain. Then came the apologies. So and so, forgive me for believing her. Never again. I sympathize with you. I was one of those who judged, and I deeply regret it. And finally, the decisions were made. The building manager called an extraordinary meeting. The atmosphere in the group became a tribunal, and the building, which for weeks had looked at me with doubt, was now united in anger, not at me, but against her. When we met in the hallways that night, it was like a movie. She descended in heels, her hair tied back, with the posture of someone who still believed she could control the narrative. But the elevator doors opened, and no one got in with her. She was left alone, her eyes darting around, unsure of what to do with her own venom. At the meeting, Raphael explained the context of the recording. He said he began to suspect his neighbor's behavior when he saw how she spoke negatively about other residents behind their backs, always trying to portray herself as a victim or a seductress. And then, in an informal conversation, he turned on the hidden recorder. The recording was played on speakerphone for those present. Everyone listened. Everyone fell silent. And when it was over, no vote was necessary. The decision was unanimous. She would be officially warned for disturbing the peace, spreading lies, defaming residents, and causing harm to the peace of the condominium. She was instructed not to approach me or my husband. What's more, a document would be filed, and any further violations could result in a class action lawsuit. But nothing was as impactful as the look on her face. Embarrassed. Expressionless. This time, she had no way to turn the situation around. The neighborhood, whom she had tried to manipulate with her lies, turned their backs on her. Her false friendships evaporated. Her hallway accomplices disappeared. She was alone. The following week, the notes stopped. The whispers ceased. The elevator returned to a place of comfortable silence, not judgment. And my marriage, once shaken by doubt planted by a jealous person, returned to being as solid as it had always been. And all this, thanks to a click. A recording. A moment when someone got tired of seeing injustice kept quiet, and actually pressed play. After the leaked audio, after the mask was ripped off with her own words, the building was never the same, and neither was I. The lie had been exposed so clearly, so blatantly, that not even the most gossipy of us could maintain alternative versions. For the first time, the truth didn't just come out, it was heard. In the following days, the neighborhood seemed to have returned to normal, but with a new tone. People who had previously judged me began to approach me more cautiously. Some with shame in their eyes, others with sincere words. And even if regret didn't erase what was said or insinuated, it was comforting to see that dignity had returned to its rightful place. My relationship with my husband strengthened. Everything we experienced during those weeks taught us a lot about trust, communication, and how easy it is for an outsider to try to destroy what they can't build. The arguments gave way to deeper conversations. We began to laugh about things that once hurt us. And, most importantly, we learned to shield ourselves, not just from what is said, but from what is insinuated, from what is spread without proof. But it wasn't just us that things changed. The neighborhood itself woke up. People began to think twice before judging. The condominium group became more attentive to what was truly important. And the figure of the neighbor from 415, once seen as charming, seductive, desired, became nothing more than a reminder of what envy can do when disguised as truth. She wasn't kicked out, but she became isolated. She walked through the hallways with her head down. She no longer smiled. And little by little, she disappeared. She stopped attending meetings. She stopped frequenting the common areas. It was as if she had been swallowed by her own lie. And one day, like someone trying to escape their own shadow, she moved away. Discreetly. Without goodbye, without warning, without fanfare. She came down with 2 suitcases and got into a car. And I watched her through the window, not with resentment, but with relief. She left. But I stayed. Firm. Standing. Stronger than before. And that's when I understood. The The truth isn't always immediate. But when it arrives, it heals. Today, I walk the same corridors with light steps. The elevator, once the scene of accusatory looks, is now just a place of passage. The words became simple again: good morning, how are you, good night, without the weight of ulterior motives. Peace returned, not because they forgot what happened, but because they remember exactly how the truth emerged. And if I could leave a message for anyone going through something similar, it would be this. Don't despair when lies are spread about you. Don't destroy yourself trying to convince those who don't want to hear you. Stay strong. The truth has its own time, and when it arrives, it silences any scream disguised as a whisper. She said my husband was her lover. She lied. She manipulated. She spread what didn't exist. But whoever heard everything. And now, she's just a name that passed. While I remain here, with my love, my home, my dignity, and the certainty that those who live a lie always stumble upon the truth. If this story moved you, like it and subscribe to the channel.